Hello, everyone. Thanks a million for joining us. I'm just going to give it maybe a minute or two just before we kick off, because I know there's lots of you signed up for this evening and a lot of interest in it as well. So joining me this evening is Kel Galavan from MrsSmartMoney. I'm sure a lot of you will know her from Instagram and from her lovely website. And my colleague Tom Halpin as well, who's head of communications and is very knowledgeable about all things grants. If any of us in the office need to know anything, we'll go to him first. Just so we can mock him if he doesn't know the answer.
Well, that's it. It's all a test.
Thanks so much, Kel and Tom, for joining me. I'm really looking forward to this evening.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. Lots of things to chat about. So we're going to be chatting a lot about finance this evening. So that F word, that finance word, we're going to be talking about that everybody's interested in. Yeah, the good F word. Yeah. And we're going to be talking about the financial benefits that come along with solar PV, that come along with switching to an electric vehicle. We're going to be talking about the opportunities that we have out there for grants, for supports, one-stop shops, green loans, you name it. So we're going to kick off with a few questions that I've prepared, and then we're going to move over to answering all of your questions, because this is Ask the Experts. So we want you to ask the questions, and that's where the fun begins, really. So we'll do our very, very best to answer whatever you want to ask us. So this evening, as I said, we're hoping to answer a lot of questions around financials, kind of savings, grants, supports. But if there is anything else there that you're looking for an answer for, we'll see if we can answer it. I can see there's lots of people joining, but again, we'll just give it another minute or two. Kel, do you want to just give us introduce yourself for those who aren't familiar? I'm sure they all are, but...
No, well, just like a few people will know me, but for those of you who don't know me, so my name is Kel, and I'm behind MrsSmartMoney. And how that even came about, I suppose, is that I was 16 years in pharma, and I loved my job, absolutely loved my job. But I found that during that time, I got married, I had kids, life had moved on. And I found with the nature of my job, as much as I loved it, I wasn't seeing my kids as much as what I liked. So I kind of thought, okay, they're growing up really, really fast. I don't feel like I'm around enough. What if I took a year out? So I took a big deep breath. I handed in my notice, walked away. Scariest thing I ever did to this day. And I said, if I'm going to cut our income in half, I was going to make that income work as hard as I possibly could. So I decided to do this no spend year. So this will really, people think I'm very odd, but we ended up, I didn't dye my hair, actually still don't to this day. We cut back, we did no spend days, we didn't eat out, cut our food budget in half. We just basically cut everything back to the bone. But the short version of it is we actually had the best year of our lives. We've never been so healthy and spent so much time together as a family. We also cut our outgoings by €27,500, which was like,
wow.
Whoa. Was not expecting that. And it was, part of it was actually moving towards an EV car, which we can chat about more later. But what came from that then, obviously the Instagram grew, and it turns out there was a lot of people interested in trying to live within their means, save a bit of money, get ahead and not be just always on the hamster wheel. And I absolutely loved it. And that's when the book ended up being written, which is just launched back in January. And that's doing quite all right. And I spend a lot of my time now talking about money and mentoring people just to get healthier habits around it. And here I am now.
That's fantastic, Kel. I'm so delighted you could join us this evening. Right, I'm going to get started. So, and Tom, I just wondered if you could maybe just give us a brief, seeing as we're talking all things finance, if you can tell us a little bit about the grants, first of all, that are available for homeowners. I know that's what a lot of people are interested in. Mm-hmm. If we can maybe chat about the free upgrade grants that are out there, yeah, the kind of ones that people self-manage themselves, and then maybe the one-stop shops.
Okay. Well, I think actually, first of all, it's worth saying what before you even talk about grants, what a person will get when they actually do upgrade their home. First of all, they're going to get a much more comfortable home. They're just going to be much cozier. Yep. It's much more convenient. It'll be a healthier indoor living environment. They won't be emitting half as much carbon dioxide, and they'll make savings as they go along because they'll be using less energy. So there's already a massive financial gain, and there's not many things that you buy for your house where it gives you a return on investment. Most investments just are sunk money. Now, they might have pleasure, but they're sunk money nonetheless. Now, in terms of the grants from SEAI, we offer, really there's two core programs that we offer support on, and I'll talk about a third one in a moment. So the first one is the free upgrade services that we offer to qualifying homeowners. And by qualifying homeowners, we mean those who are in receipt of certain social welfare benefits that are specified on our website. Mostly it's those who are on the fuel allowance. And if the homeowner is a qualifying homeowner and our home itself is eligible in terms of the age of construction of that home, they apply to us and we take over from there. We will look after assessing the home, deciding what's needed for that home, and then managing the works. And it is a totally free service to those qualifying homes. That's to make sure that those who can least afford to actually upgrade their homes benefit from this national movement of trying to improve the quality of our building stock. But it also benefits quite often those vulnerable homes have other issues in terms of health issues or mobility issues, and a warmer, cozier home can be a real benefit to them. And the sort of works that are typically done: attic and wall insulation, heating upgrades, sometimes window upgrades, depending on the quality of windows and what other works have to be done. But that's all decided at the time of the home energy assessment. So that's those people over there. And we always think it's important that those people who are qualifying for those think about that first. Second one is those who want to do works on their homes with local contractors, but qualify for a grant from SEAI. And the grant typically runs to about a third of the cost of works for a typical family home. Now, to explain that, if your home is a little bit smaller than your typical family home, you might get a slightly larger grant because they're fixed grants. And if it's a very large home, then it might be less than a third. But the sort of works that are covered in this are attic and wall insulation, heating controls upgrades, and then heating system upgrades in the form of heat pumps and solar panels, which are both renewable forms of heat, which are really important as we move towards a sustainable energy, and then solar panels to generate your own electricity. They're included in the grant scheme as well. In those instances, the person has to decide themselves what they want to get done, manage the assessment of their home, appoint the contractors, and then manage the works, and then claim the grant back from us after applying for it. So we can get into more detail about the application process if you want at some stage, but that's the core two programs. Now there's a third one that's on the boil at the moment, and it's going to become a really key pillar of the way we do works, and that's one-stop shops. We already have some contractors that or organizations that we've supported to do this. This is really a neat solution where a homeowner goes to this one-stop shop and says, I need my home upgraded, but I don't want the hassle, and I want you to try and help me finance it. And the one-stop shop will do the home assessment. They'll assign the contractors. They'll project manage and schedule it all, which is takes all the hassle away from it. They apply for and claim the grant on your behalf. So you only have to pay the amount net of the grant, and then the organization claims the grant from you. And some of these one-stop shops, as they're beginning to build, they're also beginning to offer, they're also offering finance solutions as well. So it can come as a really helpful package because it's quite a complex thing, and there's a number of contractors involved, and this makes it all the easier for you.
Brilliant. And is there information on the website then about the one-stop shops?
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, slap on the wrist for not mentioning www.seai.ie. Our lovely website has all the information you need for that.
Yeah, and I'll share it with everyone afterwards. I'll be sent around an email tomorrow. So what advice then, Tom, would you give to people you're talking about the application process that are looking at applying for the grants? Is it better to go for doing it all yourself? Obviously, probably the supply for the one-stop shops probably isn't out there just yet.
Yeah.
But I suppose, what advice do you have for people? Yeah.
Well, taken in a sequence, the first thing everyone says is, well, what do I need in my house, or where do I start? And probably the best place to start is getting a building energy rating done. Most people are familiar with the BER, or building energy rating, from seeing it on houses that are for sale or rent. But a BER, and in particular, since we just introduced a new feature in it last month, the BER now gives you an advisory report, and this advisory report is like your roadmap. It's like your instruction manual for your house. What parts of your house are dragging down the rating? So it's a bit like an NCT, and all the tick boxes that say it's the suspension's gone or it's the brakes aren't good. To get you over the line, this shows you where you are, and don't be embarrassed about your house. It could be languishing down in the G. It might be an F or an E. but this will tell you how to get it up into the B or even into the A range. And it'll indicate the priority of the measures that you should do them. And it'll also give you a broad brush as to how much it's likely to cost in order of magnitude and how quickly it'll pay for itself. So that's the roadmap you need. So get a BER done. Now, if you've then decided, let's say, average home out there and you want to get attic and wall insulation, a couple of things you can do. You can go to a local contractor, and if they're not registered with us, they can get registered with us, provided they're tax compliant, insured, and prepared to do works in accordance with the standards. Or you can look at our register of several hundreds, in fact, it may exceed 1,000 contractors who provide these services. Select from a few and get different prices. This is no different to buying, a car, or no different to buying any commodity. Shop around and get the best price, but make sure it's been done to what you want, the standard that's required. And then also, it's such a huge investment for your home. Ask that contractor, if your preferred contractor, is there someone you've done the works for locally that I could contact? Ring them and ask them. It could be a neighbor, it could be someone down the road. Most people will be happy enough just to tell you, yeah, they came at the time they said they would, they left the place neat, and we couldn't be happier. Or indeed, might tell you the reverse. At least then you'll know. But shop around and get references. At that stage, it's time to apply. Apply to us. You've got 8 months in which to do the work, which is more than enough time, but you'll have to do all the scheduling of the contractors at that stage. The contractors sign off the documents, give them back to you, and you have to get a final BER, which if you got a BER at the start, getting the same BER assessor in should make it a little more cost effective. And there's a grant towards the BER as well. And then you provide the paperwork to us, and we'll happily pay the grant into your bank account.
Fantastic. So that's grants really in a nutshell. And if anyone has any specific questions about grants or anything, just pop them in the comments and we'll answer them in just a few minutes. I wanted as well to ask you a little bit, Tom, just about green loans. It's kind of a bit, we're hearing loads of ads on the radio about it. What's the deal with those?
Well, first of all, it's great to see so many major providers now considering giving green loans. This has been probably one part of the jigsaw that's missing, and the other part is the emergence of the one-stop shops. Because for many people, they come up to this and they say, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, I don't know how I'm going to manage it. And there's too many I don't knows in the equation, and they just back off and spend the money on a gazebo or a holiday or a new car, right? What we want to do is remove those barriers. As I say, the BER helps on that. Where do I get going? The one-stop shops help on the hassle. But a number of the banks, the credit unions, and the Onestop are all offering green loans or green finance. And what it is it's preferential interest rates for people who are taking out the loan. For people who are taking out a loan to do something that benefits the home, benefits the environment, but also what the financial institutions have understood is, well, if a person is borrowing 10 grand to spend on their house, but their bills are going to be reduced by 150 or 200 euro a month because of this, well, they're even better able to pay it off. So there's less risk for these institutions in loaning people. So it's a win-win. But it's also, in fairness to the likes of the banks and the credit unions and Onestop, it's a realization that climate action is not just about one product or one service provider. It's the whole of society moving and doing what they can. And so the banks, there is a degree of benevolence to it. They could stick the interest rates where they are, but they've dropped them to try and mobilize people. And it helps as well with the conversation and helps raise the awareness of people, because particularly, I would say, I don't want to comment badly about the banks, but particularly the likes of Onestop and the likes of the credit union, they have a huge degree of trust, and people see them as being a local provider that's benefiting. So when they're talking, then that's something else in their ear saying, this is something we should be thinking about. So it helps move people along a little bit and piques their interest, makes them look at the ads, makes them read up a little bit more. And of course, then, Louise, come to the SEAI website, which I failed to mention earlier.
Fantastic. Now, Kel, I'm going to just turn to you for a minute. So I love the way that you have this kind of head for finance and a passion for sustainability. Is it all about saving money for you? Are you really interested in saving the planet?
Do you know what? Okay, had you asked me about 3 years ago, I would have said no. Look, it's about my money, my finances, my family, and just keeping our head above water. That's what it was all about. So that's where the focus had to be. And even though I wanted to be more sustainable, I didn't know how to go about doing it. But I found, and a lot of my origins will go back to the no spend year when we were trying to cut money. I realized actually living sustainably was so much more cost effective than living in my normal commercial life. So for example, like, reducing food waste, moving over to electric car, that was a bit of a leap, but our running costs just dropped through the floor for a car. And a car, for anybody who's listening here, will know that it's like a money pit, be it servicing, be it petrol, diesel going into it, a tire will always go, something will always break, it'll be, so there's always something that you need to put money into the car for. But with the electric car, there's actually very little. And then with the solar panels, I just realized it wasn't just our electricity that was being reduced down. Like our electricity bill is dropped dramatically, but it also included things like, we don't have the same leaning on oil. We don't have, like, there's so many things that we can cut back on now because of this. So even though it's a slightly different mindset, because you have to be a bit more planning, but I came from a perspective of saving money, but as it turns out, they go perfectly hand in hand, and it just takes a little bit of planning and starting off slowly, like trying to get that little bit of money together for the panels in the first place. You can go through financing, but you could maybe save up yourself and have a chunk of it there, and it can be done in loads of little ways. So anybody who's listening who's really wondering, how am I even going to save? Like simple little things, like, don't underestimate the power of putting 5, 10, 20 euro away, because that adds up pretty quickly. And that could be in the form of as simple as not buying any more shampoos until you've used up all your shampoo, making sure that you focus on reducing food waste, because that's about 700 euro a year per household just on food waste alone. All these little things, they do add up. Maybe getting one less takeaway a month, that's another 50 or 60 euro. On all these little bits, when you're renewing your utilities, the savings you made versus what you would have if you hadn't renewed is often in the hundreds of euro. Put that away. So all these little savings, they don't have to be massive changes in lifestyle. They can just be simple little things, and have a little sinking fund there, a little fund specifically for your house upgrade or your solar panels or whatever it is, and just let it build away there. And you'd be surprised how quickly all those little bits of money can add up.
Oh, I really like that. And I think that's one of the biggest barriers. And I think, Tom, jump in as well if you want, to upgrading people's homes is cost. People say that they can't afford it.
Definitely cost. People approach it not only where do I start and the complexity, but they do think about where do I, where or how much is it going to cost. And it would be wrong of me to say it's only going to cost you a small amount of money. Certain upgrades, substantial upgrades, cost a substantial amount of money. But they're no different to the sort of money that people sink into a house when they take over a house and they decide to split 2 rooms into one, or add a room on at the back, or convert the garage, or convert the attic. They're all substantial investments. And by the way, if people are considering those sort of substantial investments and they don't do an energy upgrade at this same time, they're losing a massive opportunity. But definitely, it's a large sum of money, but there are grants to support it, and the savings are substantial. And the other thing to think about it is, and it's Kel, you mentioned about buying the purchase price of the EV. It's the same with a purchase price of an EV and the purchase price of an upgrade. They actually will pay for themselves over their lifetime. If you're living in a home and you do an energy upgrade, you're in the home for another 25, 30 years. The savings you will make over that time is way below the cost of moving house to that quality of home. So, and that's a choice that people should make. Would you stay in the current home and upgrade it for 30, 40,000 euro, or would you spend 20 or 30 or 40,000 euro to move to a higher efficiency home? Most people would say, no, I love my home. I love where I live. So it is about those sort of decisions. They're lifestyle decisions you're making and lifetime decisions you're making.
And yeah, absolutely. And Kel, would you have any tips for people who I see we are getting some comments there? Just like, can you advise on what kind of things to do to, you've mentioned some of them, just to cut down on spending so that people maybe can afford to, increase their insulation or indeed get solar panels or maybe switch to a heat pump. We know they're expensive, but I suppose the grants will cover some of the cost, but not all of it.
Yeah. Oh no, it is. There's a million ways you can cut this, but I know for most people, when it comes to saving money, we get our money in, and unless you give your income a job, so I'll just explain this better. We all work hard for our money. We have been educated, we've gone to work, we've put all those hours in, we've commuted, we've been tired, we've thought about work at the weekend and all of this, and you work really hard, and your company thanks you for that by giving you this salary. And when your salary comes in, unless you give every single euro of that a job, it kind of tends to just disappear off.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the CSO spending habits of people across Ireland, and no matter what your demographic or your gender or your educational background or where you live, about a third of our money is actually spent on miscellaneous, and that's not food, it's not white goods, it's not anything, it's literally miscellaneous. It is the gadgets and the extra clothes we don't need, and the frittering away where people go, I thought I had money there, I don't know where it's gone, and they can't account for it. That money is really, really valuable, and we might think that we don't have it, but if you do sit down and you do plan, and budgeting and tracking is really important. And anybody who is budgeting will get what I'm saying here. And anybody who's new to it, budgeting is not about deprivation. It is about figuring out where your money is and giving it a job. So when it comes to saving money, the biggest thing you can do for yourself is find out what your income is, start tracking it, and make sure you're putting a bit of money aside for the things you value most. And for the purposes of this, it will be upgrading your house so you can lower your energy bills, so you can be more comfortable in your house. You're not shivering in winter. And there is a lovely feeling of knowing when you turn on your cooker, your kettle, you're getting it for free. Like, that is a really nice feeling. All these things, and think about what your end goal is. And then you go, right, okay, I have a bit of little spare money in my account here that I haven't fully accounted for. I can get a takeaway, or I can put that money away because I want this warmer house, because I love my house and I want to stay here for the long term. And it helps you make better decisions that way. And that's one of the biggest things. And then the other big, huge thing is, don't underestimate, I know I said it earlier, the power of those 2, 5, 10, 100 euro, those little pay rises you get. Just don't spend them, put them in, and you will really, really surprise yourself of what you're capable of. And it's those little changes, and not the big lifestyle, not the deprivation, the small little things that you don't even notice. Those are the ones that will actually get you across the line and get you those solar panels or whatever it is. And you will thank yourself. Future you will be high-fiving you now if you start doing things like that.
I think a lot of us as well are kind of used to maybe that instant gratification now of wanting things right now. But what you're talking about there is setting yourself a goal of maybe in 2 years' time, you're going to get that EV or you're going to get those solar panels. And it's kind of, I suppose, constantly reminding yourself that that's the goal, what you really want.
It is. And just with that, like if you're in a family and you have kids, there are lovely things you can do, like get a chart that's in a piggy bank shape or a thermometer shape you'd often see for the charity things. And, as you hit a certain, every time it's 100 euro, get the kids to colour in a little line, of it, so bills up and down. And that gets everybody involved, and it also keeps you focused, because it's really hard on a Friday night when you're absolutely tired and you don't want to cook and you're looking and you just want to sit down for the night. And to say no and cook something simple at home or grab something from the freezer instead of getting the takeaway. I know I'm picking on takeaways, and I do apologize to takeaways out there. I do like my takeaway. But to make that decision can be hard. But if you have the whole family on board and you have the kids filling up this thermometer, and you see the thermometer on the front of your fridge or something, and go, no, actually, I want this more. So you go to the freezer and you throw on something else instead of getting the takeaway. And it just helps make it, when you're front and center like that, something really visual, that's really helpful as well.
Brilliant. If anyone else has any more saving related questions, pop them in the comments. So I want to move on though, Kel, to your solar PV panels. How long have you got them? Tell us your story of getting them. Did you get the grant? for them.
Yes,
It's brilliant. Good to know.
And that just as a high note at the beginning, that was so easy. I love the
Brilliant.
website. It's super
That's
easy
what
to
we like
work.
to hear.
Yeah, so like that, I am a planner by nature. And I also love saving money. And it was, in one sense, it was galling me, the price of oil going up, and you hear the price of petrol's going up, and all these different things, and everything just seemed to be going up. Nothing seemed to be coming down. It was all going up. So I said, right, how can we have this a solution, long-term, medium, short-term? We weren't sure when we started looking. Then we thought, no, okay, we'll look into solar panels, because that seemed to be the most logical one for us. So we had a BER, which is really, really important, because, and just as Tom was saying, the BER does detail out what you can get done. And it also is actually quite clever, the BER is, because it details out if it's a high priority and low impact. So if something is not too expensive, but it's a high impact, that's a much easier thing to prioritize from a financial perspective. And it's an easy win. It's actually quite clever how it's laid out, the BER. So once you have your BER, you can even look at that as a starting point. And then the SEAI website is brilliant. It was my first starting point to get information. And there was a whole list of suppliers on it. And I wasn't, being new to solar panels, I didn't know many people who had them. So I started contacting some of the suppliers, the registered suppliers on the SEAI. And I got about 6 different quotes in total. And I do recommend people to get a number of quotes, because depending on what you want to get done, quotes can range. And it'll range everything from who you're getting to, the specific brands of the solar panels and stuff. So there's a whole world out there that I wasn't aware of. But definitely get at least 3 quotes and find somebody that you warm to, that you can openly ask questions, that they give information. And the guy we settled with was brilliant. I could ring him up any stage. He answered all the questions. And actually it only took a day to put the solar panels in. It was really quite quick to get done.
That's what everyone says.
Yeah, it actually ended up, and it was raining that day. The poor guys, I felt so bad for them on the roof. I was coming out with cups of tea and the masks on. They tried to, anyway, it was just, but they did it. They did a brilliant job, and it was really tidy. It was excellent. And there was a little tweak to do afterwards. So they came back afterwards and they did it. And since we got them in, we actually got them in coming on a year ago now. So it was actually coming kind of into autumn time. And even through the winter, we were getting a decent reduction in our electricity bill. Now, it wouldn't have been enough to kind of keep all the water and the electricity going, because obviously our winters can get dark. But we were still noticing maybe a 25, 30% reduction in our electricity bill, which is like brilliant, because we weren't expecting much from winter. But then
that's really good, yeah.
It was really good. But the magic started to happen in March, when even before the hour change, when the morning started getting brighter, and we would and I was surprised, because I kind of had rightly or wrongly in my head that solar panels, they were a summer thing. But no, it's not heat. It's actually light. Now, I know when you say it out loud, it makes sense, but we actually get a massive amount of daylight in this country. And from the moment daylight starts being produced, you start to get energy produced. Now, we did get a battery installed as well. So that was helpful. So and the excess energy. So that has been brilliant. It did make it more expensive, but for us, it's worked out really well for the size of our house and what we needed it for. And so that charges up during the day. And then so that is brilliant. So any excess energy after the water is heated, and once our electricity in our house is, happy humming away, and then it heats the water, and then it charges the battery. So it's all these levels of using up the solar power before anything is sent back out onto the grid, which the way it's set up, we don't have to touch anything. Everything's just done. It's really, really handy. So I get more time. I get to save a lot of money. Like in summer, our bills are more than halved now, and that's including charging the electric car, which is a drain in itself, because the batteries in the cars are quite big, and I wasn't sure we could actually use the solar panels at all. But now it's only for certain super sunny days could you plug the car in and actually not have to draw off the grid. But it's been an absolutely brilliant thing. And the other pleasant surprise for me as an end user is that the technology has come on so much with these panels. There's an app, and you can see in real time how much energy is being produced, what your house is using. Oh, it's like a game. The kids stare at it, and they'll put on the kettle just to see the thing shoot up. And it's so instant, and it's brilliant, because let's just say you're wondering if you want to put on a wash or something, and you go, oh well, look, we've got extra electricity going. Let's put on a wash, or let's catch up on the dishwasher, or have a shower, or whatever it is.
Intelligent, so Kel, yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant, and you can get it just becomes a really fun game on optimizing it. So it's not just you're saving it and hoping for the best. You can really hands-on and nerd out on it if you really, really want to.
Great fun during the lockdown, I'm sure.
Oh yes, simple things, Louise.
John was asking there actually what the return on investment. So you kind of reckon that your bills are halved. Can you remember kind of roughly the cost, Kel? Or so this is just for anyone interested?
To be very open about what it cost, the grant we ended up getting. Oh yes, actually, because after the whole thing was set up, our installer helped us submit the forms and stuff, and we just got the grant back into our account. So easy. And what was absolutely lovely was we got a couple of calls from the SEAI, and they said, how was your installer? How was the process? How, like, really lovely people. And the quality control is there in it, which I was really pleasantly surprised with as an end customer. But to answer your question with regards costs, so ours cost to get the battery and all the panels, and there was a bit of work in installing it with the way our house was laid out. It was about 10,500, but the grant was 2,900. So the whole thing came in to be 7,600 odd off the top of my head. So we're looking at our return on investment and I'm going to include our reduction in oil with this, will be about 6.5 years for our break-even point.
Yeah.
And for us, that's brilliant because the life of the solar panels is 25 years, as in, there's probably a technical name on this, I can't think, but before they start deteriorating, you've 25 years of really good life. And a lot of the newer panels now are giving 30 years. So if your return on investment comes in anything under 10 years, you're in the clear for the next 15 or 20, which is phenomenal. Like, the technology is brilliant.
Fantastic. And I want, just before we go to people's questions, I just want to ask about your EV as well. So you mentioned charging it. Was it purely a financial decision as well? So you switched to an electric vehicle. What's it like to drive? Are you noticing a lot of savings with it?
I love my electric car. I love it, like a pet nearly. We moved over to the EV. We hadn't planned to move so soon. We were planning on keeping the car we had for a couple more years, and when that absolutely kicked the bucket, then we were going to change over. So we were saving up in the background for that. So as it so happens, our car decided to go to car heaven way earlier than what we were planning it. Yeah, the gearbox went, anyway, it doesn't matter. So we ended up going, okay, we were hoping to wait another couple of years, but we needed one good family car. And again, we didn't know many people with electric cars. But we did our research online and things like that, and we ended up opting for one. And we were lucky. There was obviously the grant at the time, and we were able to get a bit of scrappage and things with the car. So we said, right, we'll bite the bullet. We'll finance some of it. We have a good, decent chunk of a deposit. Not as much what we wanted, but we went for it. And my goodness, the savings of an electric car, purely financial alone, before we even get into the fun of driving one, because they're really fun to drive. I do love my cars. I've always driven nice cars. I just like cars. Within speed limits, people, the acceleration in an electric car is phenomenal because you don't have to wait to burn the fuel. It's right there. The torque is there, ready to go. But from the financial perspective, your car tax is way lower. Your insurance is lower. We were paying less insurance on a brand new, fully comprehensively insured electric car than we were on a 2008 third-party fire and theft 1.2 litre car. It was that kind of blew my mind. So you had lower tax, lower insurance, lower tolls, lower servicing costs. Now we're 2.5 years into our car, and it's got over 50,000 kilometers on it. And I've never spent more than €200 on a service, and that includes getting tires and all sorts of things done with it. Because an electric car, it's basically a laptop on wheels. So the actual parts to service it are quite few. It amazed me because it's really just your laptop, your battery, and some filters, pollen filters and bits and pieces like that, and not much else. So there aren't as many things that can go in a car, bar your wipers and tires, which will be in every car. So the servicing costs are super low, and the running costs are I remember passing by a petrol station only a couple of weeks ago, and it was the first time in 2.5 years I've actually looked at the price of petrol, and I nearly...
Oh, don't look, it's shocking.
It's shockingly high. I don't know how people drive anymore. It's really... Whereas I just plug in my car in the evening, and to get a full charge that is 250 odd kilometers on it, it's about €2. So my monthly electricity bill has about an extra 25, €30 on it, and I never have to put a drop of petrol diesel into the car. It is, and I've worked out the math that the car, even with the financing of it, it's going to be cost neutral. And I never thought in my entire life I would see a car being a cost neutral thing. It's what I would perceive to be a money pit, because you're constantly putting money into it because you need a car in Ireland. Very few people can get away without having a car, but having an EV, it's actually a cost neutral exercise.
Kel, if only you'd waited till last week. We just launched our total cost of ownership calculator on our website. But I have to put a plug in. I do have to put a plug in for it, because this is the thing that most people look at. And I know we're talking home energy upgrades, so those who are hoping to talk about it, we'll have to get back to that. But most people look at it and say, family car, family EV, there's 8-10 grand in the difference. But when you run it over 8-10 years, you're going to recoup that cost in the energy savings, or in the energy fuel costs, and then some. And as you say, you add any savings on maintenance and insurance and wear and tear. It is a no-brainer, you know. Now, clearly, people have to come to terms with the range anxiety, which some have, but that's going because the cars are getting better. But we do say, and I think you reflected it there, just if you're thinking of buying a new car, test drive an EV. Even if you have absolutely no intention of buying one, test drive it just to see what it's like. And then most times you'll just buy them. They're brilliant. But
or you'll think about it when you're next ready to buy one. Where you know exactly.
I think there are a few things that we need to get a slightly better infrastructure, and they need more family type cars. Once they have that, then I just think it's going to be the ultimate no-brainer for everybody.
Exactly. It mightn't be for everybody right now, but in a couple of years, it will be.
Yeah, I think we look back in 20 years' time and go, why didn't we do it sooner?
I know. I know.
But it's a positive thing to know that it's definitely on its way.
I think I think the things you've mentioned there have really struck a chord with me anyway. Just that idea of, you know, the service not being more than €200. I just bought a car there last year and had to bring it in for a service. €500. Like, I mean, madness.
But you have to earn twice that amount of money to have that €500 in your pocket to pay that out. You know, so it's not just €500. That's days and days of your work and your life that you had to do to get that.
I know. Yeah. So definitely something. I see David we're just going to go to the comments there now. David is saying car heaven is a happy place. Thanks, David. Niall is asking, we got the cavity walls pumped in 2008 and received a grant for this. Tom, do you know, will this grant come against us in applying for the next national retrofit scheme?
It won't go against you. The house will be noted as having had wall insulation done, but all of the other upgrade measures under the one-stop shop or national home retrofit scheme can be done on that home. And that's one of the things that we've always trying to encourage people to come back to the well. Ideally, a person should do all the works in one go. That's the best thing. And in fact, I'd say even Kel might agree, from a planning standpoint in terms of the finance, just do it all in one chunk. It actually ends up with a more optimal solution. There's less disruption overall because all the works are happening in sequence and all of that, and you end up with a better technical solution because of the way the works are done. But for it was John, did you say?
Niall.
For Niall, the wall insulation, you can't get that again, but he can get all of the other measures paid for. Grant aided.
Yeah. Fully paid for. Tom is paying for it.
We'll all be applied to Tom if that was the case.
He's managing all the grants now. Derek is asking, so this is a question we get a lot about, and I'd say there's no announcement yet. Any indication or if or when solar PV will change to tariffs versus grants? Many thanks.
There is no announcement yet, and we're not in a position to preempt it or speculate on that.
Feed-in tariffs, is it?
Yeah.
I know, huge
Yeah.
interest, but once there's an announcement with these things,
Yeah.
isn't that right, Tom? They'll be announced.
Yeah, and those decisions are outside of SEAI's control because they're policy announcements by the minister and the department. So
I know we get so many
bouncing
questions.
that one.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, sorry, we don't have an answer for you, Derek. Let me see now. So we are. Amanda is asking. We are thinking of extending a 1958 cottage. Would I be better to get the solar before the extension or after? And can I get a grant if there's a new extension built?
Well, the question of the works, much as I said there, in terms of the sequence of the works, let's set the grant aside for the moment. In terms of the sequence of works, it's probably best to consider it at the time of the extension, because there's possibly, as you extend, you're probably going to be doing electrical works, and it might end up with upgrades of fuse boards or whatever. Might as well get it done at that stage when there is some level of disruption, particularly if there's a bit being added onto the house. That's disruption enough. In terms of the grant, there isn't grant aid for the works, the upgrade, or sorry, for the extension works, because they're subject to the planning or the building regulations in their own right. But there is a support to bring the other parts of the home up to the same standard. So it is the full details are available on our website. We do give details about that consideration, because the building regulations now, it's part of the carrot and stick approach. The grants are the carrot. The stick is that if you're doing certain upgrade works to your home anyway, and it affects more than 25% of the area of the home, you actually must bring the home up to a B2. And that's the right thing to do. It sort of makes sense, but this is where, if people can't see the sense, they need to be shown the sense as such. So that's what the regulations are there for.
Brilliant. John Morgan is asking, I think you should touch on heat pumps more. Absolutely. So, and this is another question as well. We had to unfortunately postpone our switching to renewable technologies webinar last week due to just unforeseen circumstances. So we will actually be hosting that. I think it's the 15th. Let me just check, of August. Is that a Thursday? It's the 12th. So, but I will send around a notice to everyone who's registered next week. And yeah, we'll be talking about heat pumps extensively then as well. So that's for John and John. Linda is asking, if a BER was done earlier this year, would I need to get another BER done to get the extra information you described? So I think that's the new BER advisory report. That's an interesting one.
As I understand it, the assessor can regenerate the advisory report from the existing assessment. Now, whether they would charge a fee for the additional administration, that's a matter for between them and the assessor. But the advisory report can be generated to show that additional information that I talked about. It was introduced earlier in the year on a pilot scheme, so some early BERs this year already had it. But yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Eileen is asking, I recently had a BER done. I had my attic insulated and I got a C1. I think it may be before the new cert. And that's the same question. Can I now get an updated one? So everyone's looking for it.
Just talk to the assessor that did it, and they should be able to assist.
Yeah. I assume though, a lot of the information is in there.
No, not really. The original BER cert was kind of the cert is the same. Actually, in both cases, the cert is the same. The advisory report that went at the back, it's hard to believe, but we've been doing BERs in Ireland for 15 years now, since 2006, and the original sort of before we had big data and artificial intelligence, etc., it wasn't really possible to crunch the data in a way that generated a bespoke advisory report for your home. That technology is now with us and being utilized in this new advisory report. And there's a lot of well thought out process that go into the design of the report as well to help you read it and help you understand it and move you along the way. But it's, anyone who has a BER should just talk to their assessor.
Okay. Yeah. Get the extra info. Chrissy, I don't think we're going to be able, I think this is probably a no, but I'll ask it anyway. I want to convert from oil to electric heating. Are there any grants available, and how much should I expect to pay for a conversion? Is that a heat pump or is that something
Well,
different?
you see, we could say no if Christy is thinking of converting to electric storage heaters or some direct electric, which is, you know, an expensive way to heat your home and doesn't have the controls, etc., that you might want for a fully integrated control system. If on the other hand you're thinking about going to a heat pump, which is an electric form of heating, then there is a grant for that. And heat pumps are a great way to use renewable electricity. So no for direct electric heating, yes for a heat pump.
Yeah.
So if Christy wants to, again, log on to the website for full details about the heat pumps and how they operate, etc.
This one is for you, Kel. So I've heard that ESB are charging now for public car charging. Do you ever charge outside of the home, or is it expensive? So is that another cost that you need to think about if switching to an EV?
Yeah, so for a long time, you could charge outside the home and it was free. And I'm trying to think, is it November? If it was this year or last year, I can't remember now. But they did start charging. And I think it was November last year. So there are loads of ways that this runs now. But basically, when you get your electric car, you ring up the ESB and you register your car to your house or your credit card. And they send you out like just something like the size of a credit card that you tap on the machine. Now, this little credit card, this ESB charging card, you could do a pay-as-you-go. So you top it up like you would have a phone. And it's 30 cents per kilowatt hour for that. Or you can do kind of a monthly rolling contract where you get a cheaper energy rate, which you pay $4.99 or something a month, kind of standing amount. So if you are using your EV quite a lot and charging away from home, that would be a better way of doing it. But if it's just kind of ad hoc, you can just have this auto top up set up. I use the auto top up because I don't charge up that much. To give somebody a ballpark of what that looks like. So to put about 100 kilometers on your car, and you can put about 100 kilometers on your car with the fast charge in about 24 minutes, unless you use one of the super fast charger. But the only one now is just gone into Monasterevin as a test there in Kildare, and that puts 100 kilometers on your car in 6 minutes. So they're going to roll out. Oh, yeah, that's a nice one. And it can charge up to six or eight cars at any one time. Whereas at the moment, the chargers really, you only can, even though there are 3 kind of plugins on it, it will only charge 1 car at a time. So you kind of have to be a bit mindful of that as well. Although most of the time, people just charge 15, 20 minutes and move on. So that's not as big a deal as what people might think. But the new super fast chargers, you can charge loads of cars at the same time, putting 100 kilometers on it. And 100 kilometers is what most people need to get you along to wherever you need to go. Like that's a good distance. And you do get the 100 kilometers, unless, of course, you're flying it down the motorway on a freezing cold day in the rain and the wind blowing against you. Then no different to a combustion engine car, you're going to go through fuel quicker. But charging, you literally just get the card. It's super, super easy. You tap it off the machine. It automatically deducts whether you're pay-as-you-go or as a kind of rolling contract customer. And that's what most people are doing now. And I know if there are any issues, you can just ring them up while you're there, give the number of the machine you're on, and you can pay over the phone. You know, they'll set you right. You will always be able to talk to somebody if you need to.
But I think it's also, just to say as well, much as you said, Kel, if you charge overnight, you wake up every morning with 250 kilometers range. Yeah. Now, to some people that may seem small, but some people live their life just putting 200, 300 kilometers worth of fuel in a car anyway. So they wake up in the morning with 50 kilometers worth of fuel and have to think about refilling on the way into work or refilling on the way to wherever they're going. So, and our research suggests that the range of the modern electric car range suits 80% of people's journeys, day in, day out.
Yeah.
Most people's, their commute might be 15, 20 kilometers in or out in the days that we commute. And may they come back, I suppose, some sense of normality. But 15, 20 kilometers in, 15, 20 kilometers back, that's 40 kilometers. That's 6 days of commuting in your car, Kel, for example. Now, if a person has a 50 kilometer commute, that's 100 kilometers. They can do 2 days of commuting without refueling. So I think it's the mindset now has to move from where it was. Early cars were sub 100 kilometers.
Yeah.
That was a different ballgame. But I think we're talking a lot of EVs to the home,
I
the
know, yeah.
upgrade
Well,
audience.
listen, I know
But
there's so many questions coming in. Actually, someone, I don't know, either of you have this answer, but do the super fast chargers not degrade batteries faster? Has that been? Is that any truth
I
to
don't
that?
know. I not that I'm aware, and it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense necessarily. You know, more than super fast chargers exist for our phones. We have slow charging and fast charging on our phones. If it's designed to work with the car and the battery, then it shouldn't degrade it any faster.
And if you had, sorry, Kel, go ahead.
No, if anybody is buying a new EV, and I don't know all of them, but I know some of the manufacturers are giving like an 8-year warranty with the battery. So for example, they might say, look, as I know one for definite, it's an 8-year warranty with the battery. So if it, within the 8 years of you owning it, if it drops below 70% efficiency, they'll just swap it out and put a new one in. And what that says to me is that there's great confidence in the quality of batteries going in. It's not every couple of years you'll be changing a battery. And I know my car just recently had a service, and with the 53,000 kilometers and it being 2.5 years old, the battery is nigh on 100% still at this stage. And we're still getting the full range with it. And I meant to say last time, a charge of about 100 kilometers on a car will cost you about €4.
Which is,
I meant to say that, it's
pretty decent. Yeah.
It is. And to translate it, so if somebody does want to travel outside their normal commuting range, you can easily do a 4-hour round trip with a 20-minute charge.
Yeah.
And amazing. Most people won't be doing a much longer than a 4 or 5-hour round trip. And that's leaving plenty of energy in the battery. You're not cutting it fine there. And I know, because there's a couple of round trips I do that are that length, that I know the route I take. And we often come home with the best part of 100 kilometers still in the tank. So it's...
I see David Patton is saying, I love my Tesla S, no going back ever, all in caps. Kelly is asking, are there maps to show where there are charging stations for EVs? There definitely, I think ESB, eCars looks after that.
Yeah.
I can pop a link for you, Kelly, into the email tomorrow as well. I'll just remind myself to do that.
Actually, pretty much, I'd be surprised if the electrics in the electric car are brilliant, but they all come with built-in maps of where the chargers are as well. And you just attach on your phone. But the ESB have a really good map, but there are other ones that have route planners. So you can actually plan your route depending, and it can take in the private chargers and the public chargers and fast and not so fast. Like once you get into it, once you make the decision, there are many, many options out there from an app and planning perspective. That's not something to worry about.
Absolutely. I'm conscious that we're just gone over time really, but I just see Jude is asking, is there a recording of this? I've only been able to join, just put my twins to bed. Well, yes, there definitely is, Jude. I'll send it around tomorrow and it'll be on our YouTube as well. David is saying as well that EasyGo app is great. I think that's kind of I just see John is asking, Tom, I don't know if this might be something for you. Some of the one-stop shops don't offer all options, for example, that they can't work with another contractor. A grant for ventilation is only part of the deep retrofit grant. So what to do? I don't know if this is something that you can answer. Yeah.
Well, just to say that at the moment, what I mentioned at the top was that there's a plan for a bigger rollout of the one-stop shops towards the end of this year.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's kind of operating on a pilot basis and not even on a fully national basis. You need to check in advance which one-stop shops have available capacity in terms of homes that they have available to support, because we're operating in a slightly limited budget constraints with them at the moment. If they have capacity, and then what services they offer. Ideally, and it may not help Joanne today, but ideally the one-stop shops will be only registered with us when they can offer all the services. Smart finance will be an option with most of them, but what we're saying is offering all of it, from project management, the home energy assessment, all the way through. And they will appoint the contractors. They're meant to have, it'll be subcontracted basis for most of them. But and it is the case that at the moment, any ventilation measures are only supported under the one-stop shop type operation. We don't provide a discrete grant for that in our single grants. So may not help Joanne, but just to clarify.
Yeah. I think that's kind of all the questions that we have gotten. A lot of questions about EVs. I see someone saying, I thought this was about home grants. Well, it was kind of a finance webinar about everything to do with money saving. So and we descended into a chat about EVs at the end. I just want to thank Kel so much. I will have to get you back to actually talk to people about EVs and why they need to switch. You're just so knowledgeable and obviously so passionate about it, and just such an interesting guest to have. Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Delighted.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, Tom, as always, my esteemed colleague and good pal. So thanks a million to everyone.
Louise.
We will be back on the 12th, and I'll send an email around tomorrow just confirming everything. And in that one, we will be talking about renewable technology. So we'll be talking about loads of stuff about heat pumps, and we'll have a homeowner on as well who has a heat pump installed. So we'll talk you through everything. Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy your evening and chat to you soon. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.